You may not have noticed, but most of your pain comes from what you allowed others to touch inside you. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. No one destroys a man who doesn't react. The world learned to read your expressions, provoke your instincts, and shape your decisions through what you feel, not what you think. Coldness isn't a gift. It's a slow construction built by someone who decided he would no longer be manipulated. Since childhood, you were trained to react, to feel anxious when rejected, irritated when disrespected, and guilty when someone pretends to be fragile in front of you. This conditioning made your behavior predictable, and predictability is submission. Whoever controls your reaction controls you, and as long as you respond to other people's emotional triggers, you will continue carrying a weaker version of yourself. This video will erase that version. The modern man believes he acts, but most of the time he only reacts. He moves like someone trained to respond to the world's touch. A dirty look changes his mood, an unanswered message ruins his day, a small criticism makes him justify himself without noticing he has already surrendered power. Emotional vulnerability is not born from weakness, but from automatic repetition. When you allow any external stimulus to control your internal state, you become too readable, and what is readable is easily used. Predictability is the greatest enemy of a man who wants silent strength. The world is full of people who test limits, bosses who observe how you react under pressure, partners who measure your insecurity, friends who play with your patience to see how far they can go. Every reaction of yours, a sigh, a change in tone, a trace of discomfort, becomes a map that leads straight to your emotional core. And when someone knows exactly where to touch, you lose the position of command. The difference between acting and reacting is the difference between dominion and servitude. Acting is choosing the moment, the tone, and the intention. Reacting is answering to the rhythm imposed by someone else. When you react, your behavior is no longer yours. It becomes a reflection of an invisible influence. Emotionally fragile people always believe they are fixing something when they react. But in reality, they are only giving the other person the satisfaction of having managed to provoke them. Silence in many situations is not escape. It is deterrence. Real control begins in the pause. A man who pauses before responding makes others uncomfortable because he does not immediately hand over what he feels. He observes, calculates, and returns only what preserves his advantage. Most people, however, live conditioned. They respond before they understand, speak before they think, give before they analyze. This emotional speed reveals their breaking point. The faster you react, the weaker you become. The state of vulnerability is not obvious to those who live inside it. You believe you're defending your dignity when you get angry, believe you are being sincere when you are hurt, believe you are showing interest when you become desperate for attention. But all of that exposes your need. Need is the smell of blood to anyone who understands the game of power. Those who display need lose respect before they even open their mouths. That is why so many men feel they are not taken seriously, not because they lack value, but because they display too much of what they feel. The diagnosis is clear. As long as your internal state is defined by external stimuli, you will remain vulnerable. The world will keep dictating your mood, your energy, your choices. The man who wants coldness must cut this cycle at the root. It is not about feeling less. It is about no longer being controlled by what you feel. Impulsive reaction is the shackle. Calculated observation is the key. Fragility doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's installed quietly, long before you realize something is wrong with the way you react to the world. The family is usually the first place where strength is domesticated. From an early age, you are expected to be obedient, gentle, and understanding. You're taught that disagreeing is disrespectful, that setting boundaries is rude, and that confronting injustice is a sign of bad character. This early conditioning shapes a man who is trained to yield before he thinks, and that tendency follows him into adulthood like a shadow he doesn't recognize. Culture reinforces this pattern by glorifying vulnerability as if it were a moral trophy. People say that being transparent proves authenticity, when in truth it's just unnecessary exposure. Modern society idolizes uncontrolled emotional expression because it creates men who are easy to predict, easy to manipulate, and easy to direct. A man who feels too much and calculates too little becomes a resource in the hands of those who understand the game of perception. He fails to see that his emotions have become public domain. The need for approval is the oldest and most efficient prison. Most men grow up hearing that they need to be accepted, in order to have value. This psychological addiction creates an automatic pattern. You measure your decisions based on how others will react, not on your strategy. There's always a quiet fear of disappointing, of seeming harsh, of being perceived as cold. That fear isn't moral, it's conditioning, and as long as it exists, your strength remains tied to someone else's gaze. Machiavelli never said a man should be cruel. He said he should be capable of cruelty when necessary. This is the point society distorts. They turn the capacity for firmness into a sin and submission into a virtue. They expect you to be understanding with those who offer you nothing, loyal to those who don't reciprocate, peaceful with those who test your limits. Fragility begins when you internalize this narrative and start confusing kindness with obedience. A man who cannot be feared cannot be respected. Guilt is another mechanism of control. From a young age, you learn that feeling anger, coldness, or detachment is wrong. They teach that good men endure everything, forgive without calculation, and stay even after they've been emotionally discarded. This kind of morality makes you too malleable. Those who are led by guilt rarely realize they're being used. They believe they're doing the right thing, when in reality they're simply being predictable. The result is a divided man, outwardly trying to appear strong, inwardly carrying layers of conditioning that weaken every reaction. The origin of fragility is, in truth, the origin of emotional obedience. When your instinct has been trained to serve, your strength stops belonging to you. Recognizing this is not defeat. It is the first surgical step for anyone who intends to reclaim their own center. The first lie is morality used as submission. For years you were convinced that being good meant being flexible, compliant, and soft enough to bend even when something inside you knew it was wrong. The morality you were taught has nothing to do with integrity. It exists to enforce social control. It was designed to tame your impulses, not strengthen them. Men who follow this distorted idea of virtue end up giving space, time, and energy to people who would never offer the same in return. When you act only to avoid hurting others, someone else has already decided how you should live. The second lie is the idea that reacting is the same as being authentic. You are told that expressing everything you feel makes you genuine. But what they call authenticity is often just poorly disguised impulsiveness. Reacting instantly, raising your tone, showing irritation, all of it turns you into an open book. And open books are easy to read. The world values those who control their inner state, not those who spill it at every threat. When you feel provoked and respond immediately, you are not being authentic. You are being governed. Your reaction reveals more about you than any calculated word ever could. The third lie is emotional transparency portrayed as a virtue. They repeated that showing your vulnerabilities creates deep connections, but ignored the fact that it also creates exploitable weak points. Intelligent people test limits by watching where you bleed. When you expose fears, insecurities, or expectations, you draw the perfect map for manipulation. There is power in silence that transparency can never match. The one who reveals everything thinks he is getting closer. In reality, he is reducing his perceived strength. The fourth lie is patience treated as a solution. Patience is praised as a sign of evolution, when in most cases it is simply stagnation dressed up as wisdom. Being patient with those who violate your boundaries is not maturity. It is cowardice disguised as calm. Waiting for someone to change, for a situation to improve, or for someone's behavior to align with yours is just handing control over to time, and time has no loyalty to anyone. Strategic patience exists, but it is active, not passive. It observes, calculates, and cuts when necessary. The fifth lie is attachment sold as love. You were taught that loving means depending, needing, suffering, and staying. But attachment is always an invitation to collapse. When you need someone too much, your voice loses firmness, your gaze loses stability, and your decisions become pleading. You start adapting yourself to avoid abandonment, and the moment you fear losing someone, you have already lost. Emotional dependence gives the other person power over your stability. Love does not require imprisonment, it requires freedom. Attachment keeps you fragile, and fragility has never been a sign of depth. These 5 lies are the foundation of your inability to be cold. They shape your identity, weaken your posture, and hide your real strength. Breaking them is not rebellion. It is a return to what has always been yours by right. The greatest confusion of a vulnerable man is believing that coldness means the absence of emotion. He imagines an inner void, a complete shutdown, as if the only way to protect himself were to stop feeling. But coldness is not emotional mutilation, it is direction. It doesn't erase what you feel. It prevents those emotions from guiding your decisions. A cold man notices everything, records everything, and reacts only to what matters. He is not less human, he is simply less accessible. Coldness is control, not denial. You don't stop feeling anger, you decide when it serves a purpose. You don't stop feeling desire, you prevent it from distorting your clarity. You don't stop feeling pain, you simply don't bow to it. What separates an untouchable man from an ordinary one is simple. The first doesn't hand his inner world over to anyone. He manages each impulse with the same precision with which he manages his time. That containment gives his presence a weight that doesn't rely on physical strength or aggression. The system that keeps you fragile is psychological, not external. It works through conditioned responses. Every time you over-explain, over-justify, or overreact, you reinforce the idea that you lack internal control, and the world responds by reducing your social value, not out of malice, but instinct. People respect what they cannot bend. When you are bent easily, it doesn't matter how good, intelligent, or well-intentioned you are. Your perceived strength disappears. Breaking this system is a silent decision. It doesn't require speeches, announcements, or dramatic change. It only requires removing the world's free access to your emotional core. A man who maintains his internal temperature cannot be read. He is interpreted only when he wishes to be. He becomes unpredictable, not because he seeks mystery, but because he no longer moves according to external stimuli. And someone who no longer dances to external impulses creates a subtle sense of danger. People don't understand what drives him, and that generates respect. This transition also requires confronting emotional habits. You are trained to react quickly, justify quickly, respond quickly. That emotional speed is the mark of submission. When you slow it down, you don't become sluggish, you become sovereign. Every pause is a cut in the system that conditioned you. Every calculated silence is a signal to the world that you're no longer available for manipulation. And every decision made without external pressure is a reminder that coldness is built, not innate. The line that marks this turning point is simple. Your reconstruction begins now. From this moment on, you do not weaken the impulse, you master it. You do not repress your strength, you direct it. And you do not react to the world. You observe it to decide where to cut. The first pillar is surgical thinking. It doesn't operate through emotion, but through precision. A man who thinks surgically never responds in the heat of the moment. He breaks down the situation like someone studying a silent board. To him, every person reveals patterns, every speech reveals intention, and every gesture reveals a weakness. Surgical thinking doesn't seek justice, it seeks advantage. It turns reactions into choices and impulses into strategy. When you abandon the need to be right and begin acting with intention, your mind stops being an internal battlefield and becomes a cold instrument of control. The second pillar is strategic distance. Distance is not emotional withdrawal, it is energy management. Ordinary men try to control everything they touch. Cold men control only what they allow to touch them. Strategic distance preserves clarity, because when you get too close to situations, you lose the ability to see hidden movement. Being one step behind the world forces it to reveal itself. Being one step above forces it to bend. This distance prevents you from being dragged by expectations, manipulations, and urgencies that are not yours. It protects your stability like an invisible wall. The third pillar is the social mask, not the mask of deceit, but of controlled neutrality. The social mask is the ability to avoid showing more than you want perceived. Most people expose emotions as if the world were a confession booth, forgetting that every expression is information. The correct mask hides vulnerabilities, but also conceals intentions. It prevents anyone from measuring your real strength, because they can't access your inner axis. When you master the social mask, your words lose urgency, your tone gains weight, and your posture signals someone who cannot be manipulated. The fourth pillar is the inner blade. This blade does not cut people, it cuts illusions. It is the ability to eliminate ties that weaken you, habits that drain your energy, and expectations that keep you locked in roles that no longer serve you. The inner blade is what separates the cold man from the merely resilient man. Resilience is enduring. Coldness is choosing what deserves to exist in your life. The blade does not hesitate, does not feel guilt, and does not negotiate with anything that threatens your self-control. The sharper it becomes, the freer you are. These 4 pillars form the foundation of a mind that cannot be bent. Surgical thinking to see the game. Strategic distance to avoid losing yourself in it. The social mask so you cannot be read. And the inner blade to cut whatever obstructs your ascent. When these pillars consolidate, you stop reacting to the world and begin shaping it according to the rhythm of your presence. Attachment is the final chain that keeps a man vulnerable because it disguises itself as virtue. You believe you're being loyal, devoted, or emotionally deep, when in reality you're giving the world control over your stability. Attachment always comes with fear. Fear of losing someone, fear of losing a position, fear of losing the image you have of yourself. And whatever you fear losing begins to direct your movements. Attachment is quiet but decisive. It shapes your limits, your voice, your posture. It determines how far you go and how far others can go over you. Attachment to people is the most immediate form. Whether it's a relationship, friendship, mentor, or family, once you internalize someone as indispensable, you give up emotional territory. You become anxious, overly careful, overly permissive. You start accepting behaviors you would never tolerate from anyone else. That isn't love, it's dependence. And dependence turns anyone into a threat to your center. The person you fear losing becomes your psychological superior. They set the pace, and you follow, trying not to be discarded. This imbalance destroys your coldness from the inside out. Attachment to your image is even more deceptive. You become a slave to who you think you must be. Likable, agreeable, reliable, admired. You constantly adjust your actions to maintain the reputation you believe you should uphold. But image is a prison far greater than any outside opinion. When you try to preserve who others expect you to be, you disconnect from who you actually are. Men trapped by their own reputation become predictable, because every decision they make is an attempt to protect a perception. A cold man doesn't protect his image. He protects his inner axis. The image builds itself when the core is solid. Attachment to the past keeps you tied to outdated versions of yourself. You cling to mistakes, memories, regrets, and identities that no longer fit. The past becomes a justification to remain small. Every memory you treat as a wound prevents your coldness from maturing because it demands emotional reaction. True coldness doesn't erase the past. It turns it into a neutral record. Nothing is weight, nothing is an anchor, nothing has the right to govern the present. The past only dominates the one who insists on revisiting it emotionally. Attachment to comfort destroys character. It makes you choose immediate ease over future strength. You trade clarity for distraction, precision for laziness, presence for numbness. Comfort is seductive because it requires no discipline, only surrender. But every moment of excessive comfort is accumulated weakness. A cold man doesn't fear discomfort. He uses it to sharpen his mind. And finally, attachment to outcomes. You want to guarantee, predict, and control everything. This generates anxiety, desperation, and instability. When you need something to happen, the world senses your urgency, and urgency is always interpreted as weakness. Detachment from outcomes isn't indifference, it's sovereignty. You act with precision and wait without desperation. This turns any scenario into neutral ground. The phrase that seals this stage is simple and definitive. What you fear losing controls you. Rebuilding yourself isn't about adding strength, it's about removing everything that weakens you. The process of becoming untouchable begins with small decisions that, repeated over time, reprogram your internal structure. No real transformation happens while you continue reacting automatically to the world around you. Coldness emerges when you replace impulse with calculation, speed with precision, and need with presence. It's not an emotional state. It's a psychological engineering that redefines your relationship with everything that touches your mind. The first practice is strategic silence. Speaking less isn't about being mysterious. It's about preventing your emotions from leaking without permission. Most people speak to relieve internal tension, but that relief exposes vulnerability. Silence forces your mind to organize thoughts before releasing any words. This increases your presence and reduces your exposure. In professional environments, silence calculates power. In personal relationships, it reshapes the dynamic. A man who doesn't respond immediately isn't seen as indecisive. He's perceived as unshakable. The second practice is the emotional pause. Whenever something hits you, criticism, subtle disrespect, manipulation, you wait a few seconds before reacting. That pause reprograms your brain not to respond on autopilot. You observe what was said, what was implied, and what actually matters. This single shift moves you from a reactive mode to a dominant one. Whoever controls the pause controls the rhythm, and whoever controls the rhythm controls the interaction. The third practice is conscious detachment. It doesn't mean abandoning everything. It means removing the emotional weight from things. You don't need to stop loving, working, dedicating yourself, or wanting something. You only need to release the visceral need for return, control, or guarantees. When you act without expecting anything in return, your posture becomes impartial. That impartiality is interpreted as stability, and stability is the foundation of coldness. Detachment isn't absence, it's autonomy. The fourth practice is cold observation, especially in moments of conflict. Instead of responding with irritation or justification, you watch the other person's behavior as if you were studying a repeated pattern. This removes the emotional impact of the attack and turns each interaction into data. By seeing intentions rather than provocations, you become impossible to destabilize. Coldness grows when you understand that offenses reveal more about the person who delivers them than about you. The fifth practice is reducing stimuli. You cannot build a cold mind amid constant noise, social media, pointless arguments, and an excess of outside opinions. Reducing these stimuli strengthens your internal clarity. Coldness is silent because it requires mental space. Men who feed their minds with chaos never develop internal control. They only expand their reactivity. Reducing stimuli is cutting the world's access to your mind. Finally, the deepest practice, choosing presence over need. Presence doesn't seek attention. It's naturally perceived. When you become a man who doesn't need to convince, chase, or prove anything, respect appears as a consequence. Coldness is born at this point, when your existence stops being a reaction and becomes an axis. The identity of a cold man isn't built to be displayed. It reveals itself through signs the world notices before he even speaks. The first sign is silent presence. It's not timid quietness, but a posture that occupies space effortlessly. Silent presence comes from the absence of urgency. You don't try to please, prove yourself, or compete. Your energy moves slowly, with calculated precision, and this creates a subtle tension around you. No one fully understands where you are emotionally, and that uncertainty generates immediate respect. Silence becomes your most solid form of authority. The second sign is a steady, unwavering gaze. It isn't aggressive, but it doesn't bend. It seeks no approval, asks for no validation. It simply observes. A steady gaze dismantles manipulation because those who try to control you depend on your emotional agitation. When they notice your eyes don't tremble, don't shift, and don't react, they realize their attempts are useless. A cold man's gaze doesn't need to intimidate. It only needs not to fold. It communicates that nothing inside you is for sale. The third sign is elegant indifference. It isn't neglect, it's prioritization. A cold man doesn't waste energy arguing about what doesn't matter, explaining what doesn't need to be explained, or insisting where value isn't reciprocated. His indifference isn't an escape, but a decision. It signals that he isn't emotionally available for petty conflicts, ego games, or childish validation. This refined indifference disarms people who expect intense reactions. They don't know how to handle someone who refuses to follow their emotional script. The fourth sign is the absence of need. Need is noise. It's what makes a man talk too much, push too hard, or try too desperately to be noticed. When you eliminate the need to be loved, seen, included, or accepted, your entire energy shifts. The world senses that you're not chasing anything. This absence of need creates an aura of security. You seem stable because you are, and stability is one of the rarest and most respected traits in social dynamics. People adjust to your presence without you having to say a word. The fifth sign is quick, cold decision-making. There is no prolonged hesitation, no emotional justification. Your decisions come from internal principles, not external pressure. This decisiveness shows the world that you are not available for manipulative negotiation. Speed isn't impulsiveness, it's clarity. A cold man knows exactly what he tolerates, what he cuts off, and what he allows to remain. His firmness creates boundaries that don't need explanations. The sixth and final sign is minimal, precise language. You don't speak to fill silence or decorate your presence with unnecessary words. Every line is objective, calculated, almost surgical. Manipulators rely on long conversations to search for emotional openings. When you speak little and speak accurately, there are no openings. Your language communicates sovereignty, not arrogance. What you don't say carries more weight than what you do. These signs aren't ornaments, they're consequences. When a man is no longer ruled by his own emotions, the world naturally begins to treat him as someone who cannot be bent. Coldness doesn't come from a single moment. It comes from a decision repeated until it shapes a new identity. The pact begins when you accept that your former version no longer serves you. That version existed to please, to avoid conflict, to survive under the eyes of others. But a man is not made to survive. He is made to become necessary. The ritual of coldness is the silent rejection of useless emotion. It is the moment you stop reacting to the world and begin observing it, with the calm of someone who finally recognizes himself. This ending is not a farewell. It is a marker. From this point on, you no longer respond the way you once did. You stop explaining yourself to those who don't deserve it. Stop being shaken by what doesn't matter. Stop giving your energy to those who can't hold it. Coldness works like a second skin. It doesn't weigh, it doesn't tighten, it doesn't restrict. It only protects. It creates an invisible barrier between your mind and the chaos around you. It turns your presence into something solid, something immune to external expectations. Coldness doesn't harden, it clarifies. The pact demands an internal shift, abandoning the need to be understood. The man who wants to be understood exposes himself too much, explains too much, bends too much. The man who wants to be inevitable chooses silence. You owe your soul to no one. Your coldness is your signature. It doesn't need justification, only consistency. Such presence changes rooms, disarms egos, and rearranges hierarchies without raising your voice. Once you master this state, you realize that power doesn't come from emotional impact, but from the absence of it. The rebirth that begins now has no spectacle, no applause, no promise. It happens in the discipline of each restrained gesture, in the firmness of each limit, in the precision of every word you choose to withhold. Coldness doesn't take away your humanity. It removes only what weakened it. You become someone who doesn't sink with the tide, who doesn't tremble at rejection, who doesn't bow to manipulation. Your mind stops being a vulnerable field and becomes sovereign territory. And when a man governs himself, the world no longer governs him. This is the pact. From now on, you do not react. You choose. You do not cling. You observe. You do not despair. You calculate. This is the silent commitment that separates the common man from the impenetrable one. To seal this ritual, write only one sentence, not for me, but for yourself. I have become untouchable. It isn't motivation. It is a reminder that your reconstruction has already begun, and anyone who steps onto this path never returns to the fragile version he once believed was real.